Welcome back to the Coaching Moment. This week we're going to talk about how can I stop reacting to quote-unquote bad news. And so very often the first thing to really consider about reacting in terms of really knowing where this comes from is to recognize that any reaction you have to news, events, circumstances that occur around you are 100% and completely about you. Because it's how we view our circumstances, the interpretations, the perceptions that we have, that even create whether or not we feel it's bad news or good news or otherwise. Two people can see the same exact circumstance unfold right before them, and they're going to have two completely different views. One can get completely stressed and anxious over it, while the other person might get completely exhilarated and excited by what it is that they're seeing. Why do they see it differently? They have different perceptions. They have different frames of reference. And so that's actually within your control. You do have that ability to shift what your perceptions are, to create different meaning from what it is that you see right in front of you. So the first thing that's very, very important is not just in knowing this information, but you need to know what your tendencies are. You really need to know where it is that you're operating from. What is your typical reaction to this so-called bad news? You need to be able to write it out as if it was a formula. And so what you can do is take a look at a recent circumstance where you know you had a reaction to it, it was perceived as bad news, and it took you maybe a day, several days, maybe even several weeks to really kind of shift yourself and be okay with whatever it was that occurred. And so use that as a learning opportunity. Take the chance to write out what that circumstance was and try and see if you can chart the kind of the progress, the steps that you went through. Chart the type of reactions, the type of thoughts, the type of judgments that you had during that whole process, so that you can really understand what it was that you needed to think through before you were quote-unquote okay again with whatever news or circumstances happen to unfold. But knowing that tendency is really critical, because you've got to take the chance to look at what your perceptions were of that event, because that's actually what created your reaction in the first place. So you really need to know what was going on. What was that interpretation that you made? And so when you go through that process, you have to do one more thing. You have to temporarily not let yourself off the hook. Meaning that we have a protective nature of ourselves. It's very easy for us to say, well, I reacted, but it was really about so-and-so. No, I reacted, but it was because somebody put me in this situation, or these circumstances weren't just right. And in those moments, what you are truly saying is that my circumstances, the events that occur around me, are more powerful than I am. And you are really stepping away from the fact that you have the amount of control that you truly do have over your life. And so you've got to be a little bit tough on yourself and assume that it is your responsibility, which you've seen on our blogs and seen me talk about. It is our responsibility to be able to do something different, to be able to perceive in a new way. And so what this starts with is recognizing that locus of control is the term that is used. Locus of control is simply understanding that if you have an external locus of control, it is the belief that your circumstances, chance, fate as it were, is more powerful in creating your results than anything you can do. An internal locus of control says that your results are created from within you. And so the individuals that have a stronger internal locus of control, these are individuals that truly do believe that they can create their circumstances. Now, this is not to say that things aren't going to unfold in life. We know life happens all the time. The thing is we assign meaning to what happens. And with an internal locus of control, they recognize that assigning that meaning and how that changes their response from that point forward is really what is most critical. And they recognize that they do have that power to do so. So for you, if you do recognize that you react to bad news in ways that you really are not happy with, or circumstances you react to that you're really not happy with, the first thing is you've got to create a trigger for yourself. And again, for those that have seen this in the past, by trigger I mean create an action, something physically that you can even do that will allow you to stop and wake up in the moment of that reaction. So you need to plant some seeds in your head that says, hey, when bad news comes my way, these are some of the things that I typically do that create my reaction. And if I feel like I'm going this way, or feeling stressed, or feel that anxiety in my gut, I know that that's a great time for me to stand up and maybe appreciate something outside the window. Maybe that's a great time for me to take a walk to get my wits back about me. To do anything that physically is literally going to change your perspective and snap you back into being present in the moment and recognize that you're reacting. So creating that trigger in the moment is one of the really, really powerful things that you can do to stop yourself from overreacting. Once you have kind of created that awareness so you can slow down long enough, the second thing to do is breathe. because you need that moment to calm yourself down just that little bit to, again, get your mind working, give you yourself a chance to process and to catch up with, frankly, all the emotional reactions that are probably going on for you at that moment. Because then once you have grounded yourself just that little bit, you can now ask yourself something as simple as, okay, why is this okay right now? Or why am I actually okay right now? Why is this maybe not quite as bad as it may seem? What you're doing is you're going to ask yourself a couple of questions to help you rationalize what is going on, to normalize it, to make it okay. Because if you can normalize, rationalize, even create excuses for why this is okay right now, what you're doing is you're giving yourself the opportunity to shift energetically, to really shift your energy so that you're not completely focused on the reaction, the negative reactions, the negative energy, the perceptions that you may have that race you down the old reactionary road that you've already traveled a million times. And if you can shift that energy and rationalize why, hey, this is okay, or I'm all right now, or yeah, you know what, this is kind of to be expected. If you can create those rationalizations for yourself, you can put yourself back with that internal locus of control, meaning that you can put yourself back in a point of choice to say, and now that I know that this is okay, this is how it is that I choose to move forward again, to create what it is that I'm after, to improve whatever it is I feel like I'm going through right now. And you can do so from a standpoint of calm confidence as opposed to an emotional reaction. So here's wishing you your next reaction, the next piece of bad news, so that you can actually turn this into one of your greatest opportunities. Best of luck.